So like any good YouTuber, when Elden Ring came out, I immediately made a video about its difficulty and got bombarded with angry comments. It was mainly about how your pride gets in the way of you enjoying a game by you limiting yourself, and obviously the moment I mentioned summons, I completely lost a lot of people in the conversation. But I said something in that video I want to go deeper into, about how get good has lost its meaning. To make a long story short, if you don't watch that video, which you should by the way, I was trying to tell people how get good was actually never meant to be an insult. Now, what do I mean by that? To make a long story short, a lot of the times people, when going through ways to get help through the game, would often ask for advice about certain situations. And a lot of times the answer was quite simply just to get good. It was genuine advice, a simple way of saying, learn the situation through repetition and intuition and developing your skills, and you'll eventually get it down. Genuine advice, no trolling. Now, that worked in the Dark Souls games, but honestly, tell yourself how many times getting good is actually the most optimal solution in Elden Ring ever. Like, it is a solution, but it's not the solution. Face it, while it had its run, but that term has basically just become dogmatic. It's limiting, at least the way people use the phrase, and the way people play the game thereafter. These days, telling somebody to get good is the equivalent of telling somebody to pick themselves up by the bootstraps. And I'm gonna emphasize this because players start to lose their mind. If you enjoy getting good and sweating a monster, speed running level 1 difficulty, I'm not talking to you guys. You guys are like 1% of the player base. That's fine. You guys pretty much get what I'm talking about, or what I'm going to be talking about. Who I'm talking to is the people who sweat the game for a sense of pride or accomplishment, even though they're not really enjoying themselves.
Please, let me go! Let me go, Radon! I want out of this game! I've had enough! I'm comfortable where I'm at! I don't want to go get more fragments, fuck nigga! I don't want to get more fragments, fuck nigga! I just want you dead! Just cooperate and lay by my feet! Fucking dead! You you consort slut! You were dead already! I killed you! I killed you! Nigga!
There's a complete difference in those two types of players. If you're sweating the game and having a bad time, maybe you should change the way you're approaching the game. Again, I'm going to emphasize, if you enjoy the challenge, this message is not for you. Here is a good indicator of if you are pushing yourself too hard in Elden Ring. If after killing the boss, instead of feeling a sense of accomplishment, you feel a sense of just gratitude for the fact that the boss is dead and it's over, you push yourself too hard. You need to adjust your playstyle, make it easier on yourself. Because I've seen people use this as an indicator to say, oh, this is poor development because the boss is not fun. I didn't enjoy myself. I didn't get a sense of accomplishment from beating him. I just felt relief and sadness. Well, I had the same feeling after beating that lightning dude in Sekiro. Did I go on the internet and cry about the game and say, Sekiro is too hard to be fun? No, I said, maybe, just maybe, this challenge is too much for me, and I'll come back to this shit at a later date. Yeah, I put that bullshit down. Subscribe and watch me beat that game, because I'm coming back for that game, and I need y'all help. But getting back to the video. In other previous Souls games, we got good because we had to. But now, you have other options. A lot of times, getting good is counterproductive to your situation. And worst of all, getting good might not actually be fun in your situation. Getting good is not a core mechanic of Souls games, and it never was. Getting good is not a judgment of how fun a video game is. The truth is, the Soulsborne games are much more than a difficulty skill check, and a lot of old school players seem to forget that along their journey throughout these games. I think the most perfect example is Demon Souls, which some would argue is the prototype of all Souls games, the birth of where all this shit came from. If you've played that game, pretty much 80% of the bosses in that game are basically poor man's versions of Rykard. By that I mean almost all of them are gimmicks, seemingly impossible bosses that are actually extremely easy once you know how to deal with them. And that, in my opinion, is the epitome of Souls game. People say the difficulty of a Souls game comes from the lack of knowledge, and that's pretty much it. Think of a Dark Souls boss as not like a Monster Hunter fight, but more like a combat version of a Rubik's Cube you're trying to solve. Not knowing the patterns is the same as not knowing that the boss is weak to fire and exploiting that fact. True point of a Soulsborne game is illuminating your ignorance, learning how to conquer and master a complex world that's just as foreign as it is intimidating. Overcoming a tough situation, that's the core of the experience, but how you approach that challenge is completely up to you. And that's one of the best things about this game. You're free to learn how to cheese the boss, you're free to learn everything about the boss's attack patterns, and if bashing your head against the wall is not working out for you, then maybe, and just maybe, you're not that guy, buddy.
Okay.
Sekiro and Bloodborne are games with more focused gameplay mechanics and playstyles, which is completely understandable why people rant and rave about how much they love those games. It's very niche in terms of Souls mechanics. But Elden Ring is the complete opposite. It means to encompass as much of the Souls genre as it possibly can. Its parts are not as great as the whole, however that saying goes. I can't remember it. So because Elden Ring casts such a wide net, obviously, when put under a microscope, it's not as finely tuned as some of those fan favorites. Is the game flawed? Of course. It's full of reused assets, reskinned enemies, but the sum of the parts are greater than the whole. I think that's the saying. People will call something a masterpiece, not necessarily because it's flawless and untouchable, but because it's the closest thing we have to perfection. Elden Ring is basically that, minus Radon.
You're afraid of the TARDIS. You're afraid.
I feel like it's disingenuous to make a video essay critiquing the Elden Ring game when only going through, let's say, a melee-only playthrough. It's just cutting yourself off from a whole section of the game. The amount of incantations and spells, it's almost its own other game that needs to be experienced in at least one playthrough. Have you tried a faith build, guys? It's fun as shit. But yeah, I pretty much went on a little tangent there, but that's sums up how I feel about why Get Good has lost its meaning and how to actually enjoy Elden Ring. Getting good should be seen as nothing more than a style of play. It should not be seen as the epitome of how to approach the game. In fact, it can be counterproductive to your enjoyment of the game. What you really should be doing is learning as much as possible. Learning new places to go, learning different spells, playstyles, weapons, attack patterns. A thirst for knowledge, a curiosity should be the most important thing. I don't know what mantra should replace getting good in the community, but it no longer serves us, at least in the context of Elden Ring. If you want to apply something like this to real life, with the rise of AI, what you look like trying to get good, you should be playing it smart. You should be learning new things, at least the way current society is heading. Basically what I'm saying is don't limit your own gameplay. Don't limit your fun. Unless you're one of those no-hit speedrunner guys, then y'all got it. Ignore what I said.